I call the universal intelligence, the universal life, the universal love that flows through everything, everywhere, all the time. It moves through everyone, whether I like it or not, whether I agree with it or not. It is the allness of life itself. It is the life force. And it is available to me in a very unique way, because it's all in how I use this life force that establishes my life experience. So today I open my mind and my heart to everything that's happening here, and I let it be inspiration, I let it be food for thought, I let it be the awakening of the wisdom that is already within me, because otherwise I couldn't understand it, and I let it become the energy that I need to move through the rest of my day, the rest of my week, the rest of my life. For I know affirmative prayer is imprinted upon universal law. It says yes according to my belief. And today I open up my consciousness to believe more deeply that this life force is available to me. It is for me. It supports me. It guides me. It gives to me everything that I need to stand on most solid ground. The solid ground of my fabulous life. And so it is. I need an extra hand today. So, Centers for Spiritual Living as an organization has a theme for the year. It's called 100 Years of the Science of Mind. Because Ernest Holmes brought this beautiful teaching into being around that time with his first book, Creative Mind. And every month has a theme, and this month the theme is where humanity and divinity meet. And those of you who were here last week, you heard me talk about the cross and how the cross, the horizontal line represents our life from beginning to end. And the vertical line represents our transcendence in spirit. The place where it meets is where we have our own individual authentic experience. Interestingly, it represents also the heart. And so I want to talk a little bit today about identity and how we identify ourselves. So I want you to think from the perspective of a job interview or a resume, or being online dating, or meeting a new group on Meetup, and you're sharing about yourself. How do you identify yourself? What do you say that you are, for example? I'm a therapist.
Nature lover.
I'm a nature lover.
Wonderful.
I'm wonderful. A mother?
Passionate.
Singer? What was that?
Passionate.
Passionate? Male, female, black, white, red, purple, green. I do this for a living. I'm this age. And then we have our labels. I'm a lawyer. I'm a doctor. I'm a minister. We have so many ways that we identify ourselves. And I have discovered that now, at this time of life's evolution, we tend to get a little more careful how we identify. There have been more ways to identify ourselves. And to me, being on a spiritual path means embracing all of them. And to see the magic and the wonder of our uniqueness and our individuality and our authenticity. I was doing a little research on LGBTQ, and I realized there's a whole other series of letters that are now attached. IAPK. So lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, intersex is common now. The I is for intersex. That's common now. P stands for polyamorous or polygamous. K stands for kink. Doesn't say kinky, it says kink. So I am sure that as we become more comfortable with identifying ourselves and labeling ourselves, that there's going to be more letters than in the alphabet. And I don't know if I'll write them down then, because I forget. And yet I want to honor all of that. I want to honor everybody's journey, everybody's experience. So I know that when I have a reaction about how somebody identifies, that's more about me than it is about them. And I get to open my mind and I get to open my heart to having a broader experience of how uniquely different we all are and how worthy that is of respect. So when it comes to our humanness and our personality, we tend to identify with labels of ways of being in the world, gender, social status, hobbies. And that's also how we think. Did you know that the research has established that we have in our self-talk that we have about 300 to 1,000 words a minute in our self-talk? 300 to 1,000 words per minute, and that 75% of those words are limited, negative. So think about your self-talk when you go through an average day. It's a little difficult to measure, right? I always think, wouldn't it be cool that it all gets recorded and it gets played back to me at the end of the day, so I have somewhat of a sense of what's going on in my mind? We don't really need that because our lives reflect it. Your day-to-day living reflects your self-talk because your self-talk is based on your beliefs, and your beliefs become manifest. That's pure metaphysics. That's a spiritual principle. Spiritual life is about remembering that you're more than any identity or any aspect of your identity. That you are more than any label, any role, any social status, any racial status, any financial status, that we're always more. So today the topic is, yes, I agree, more than that. Aristotle, who lived more than 300 years before Christ, it's kind of interesting when I read phrases by him, I think, wow, we still don't get that one. He said, the whole is more than the sum of its parts. The whole is more than the sum of its parts. The whole is more than the sum of its parts. So if we identify with the S, the small s, more than the big S, which is our universal self, our whole self, our true spirit, our essential nature, our wholeness, we tend to suffer. And when you flip that over, it's true as well. When we pay attention to our suffering, it will tell us that we are over-identified with the part or parts. And it becomes an invitation to be more identified with our true essential self. Thich Nhat Hanh, the Vietnamese Buddhist monk, said, enlightenment is when a wave realizes it is the ocean. Enlightenment is when the wave realizes it is the ocean. Our enlightenment happens when we realize that the parts that we describe or identify or over-identify with are included in the whole. And can we see our smaller self or selves in that perspective? Can we see it from the whole picture? Can we take a bird's eye view? Because the whole human tendency is to see very narrow. We see from the perspective of our conditioning, our beliefs, our past experiences, our limited point of view, and we forget that there's so much more to this. There's so much more going on in this disease, or this identity, or this experience, or this fact. And so we realize that when we look from the smallness of the self, from the self-talk with the small L, S, that we feel separate. The moment I say, I am female and you are male, there is a sense of separation. The moment I say, this is my sexual orientation versus that, there is a sense of separation. And so life becomes about that practice of finding what we have in common more than what separates us. So if the limited way of viewing ourselves and each other causes suffering because we experience a sense of separation, we have to also realize that separation and suffering are all about pain and all about fear. And we now live at a time in history where fear is being used to divide us. And so we must begin to look to a higher point of view, a higher image, a higher truth, in order for us to be part of a greater experience. And so pay attention to your desires. Pay attention to what you're hungry for, what you're thirsty for. Pay attention to what you would really love, what you really want, because the seeds of realizing that lies within that sense, that feeling. Instead of trying to fix the outside and fill up from the outside in, or to feel better from the outside in, we realize that that which we need already lies within. That we're not going to be happier with a bigger house, a better relationship, more money, or add to your list. That's temporary. Where we find true happiness is within ourselves, realizing that it cannot be found anywhere else. And the good news is, it already is there. It's already within you. You just haven't been paying attention. And so, what we discover on the spiritual path is that anything that changes is just an illusion. We don't so much teach that, like some of the other spiritual teachings and religions teach that life is an illusion. But there is an element to understanding that that which changes isn't real. That which doesn't change is real. And what doesn't change is your inherent wholeness, your inherent happiness, spirit within you, the truth within you, your heart of hearts, your wholeness, your inherent wholeness. And so, that already is. Each of you are already whole, perfect, and complete. Spirit within you already is there. It's nowhere to be found but within. Love is already available in its fullest, most infinite, unconditional form. Wisdom, you already have access to. Just have to pay attention. We have to listen with different ears. And so the question is not so much, how do I become healthier, happier, wealthier, smarter, etc., etc. The question then is, what am I doing to block it? What am I doing to disturb it? What am I not paying attention to? And to discover that the answer is found in the more. So today is a good day to welcome that new identity that isn't really new. It's the oldest part of you, your essential nature. And that's why we do spiritual practices. And what's really helpful in your spiritual practices is before you do your practices, whether it's meditation, prayer, visioning, visualization, affirmation, is to pause for a moment and to let yourself pay attention to your self-talk. And to check it out for a minute. And then to say, what specific practice do I need so that I can shift my self-talk from separate identities to the one truth that is already within me. And then we do those practices until we notice that something is changing, that something is shifting, that we have more faith, we have more trust, we're more peaceful, we feel more harmony. And then we become less attached to that which separates us, to how we identify ourselves. And then we're not so shaken when change happens, and nothing is constant but change. Then we're more solidly grounded in the truth when we see what's happening in the world that we might not like. And maybe we notice that there is good happening as well. And that's when we take full responsibility for our unhappiness and realize it is not done to us. It is done within us. So Ernest Holmes said this on page 151 in the Science of Mind textbook. There's a place in us which lies open to the infinite. But when the Spirit brings its gifts by pouring itself through us, it can give to us only what we take. This taking is mental. So I want you to have an experience right now, through meditation, through guided meditation, about tuning into that true essential self. And our beloved Theo is going to facilitate that. So I invite you to close your eyes.
As we hear the sound of the Om, it is said that the Om is the sound of creation. It is the signature of Source itself. Ask yourself this question. Who am I? Who am I? Who am I? Bring your attention to your breath. And breathe. Notice the inhale and the exhale. Notice how it is automatic. Notice that it's not you breathing. That it is breathing you. Travel down from your mind's eye into your heart space. And you might be able to detect the heartbeat. It is said that this is where humanity meets divinity, in the heart space. Notice how you are not beating your heart, but rather the heartbeat is living you. The human body is composed of trillions of cells. Muscle, bone, organs, and in each and every one of these cells, let's bring our mind into that space the vast infiniteness of the cellular structure of your body, where genes and DNA live, all held together by energy. Energy in the form of atoms and molecules. Maybe you remember from high school what a molecule looks like, or an atom looks like. And from this place, notice your breathing. And now allow yourself to lift your mind's eye out of the human body and elevate up. Elevate up into the heavens. Going past the ceiling of this center. Hovering over the continent, all the way out, past the moon. Looking back, you can see the blue marble suspended in something. Traveling even further, so far out that you can see every planet spinning around the sun. And notice how even that looks like an atom or a molecule. It is said in many divinity texts that we are made in the image and the likeness of the Source itself. So from this place, ask the question, who am I? Who am I? From here, we know that we are the sum of everything. There is no separation. We are all individualized expressions of this one thing, the life source itself. And so from that place, our divinity is perfect. It is whole. It is complete. Who am I? I am love. I am peace. I am harmony. I am abundance. Who I am is the universe itself. and so it is.